Looking at the latest economic picture, the CBI is basically saying, look, we've got a year-long decline in consumer spending ahead, talking stagflation, i.e. a stagnant economy with inflation still going on. Given that and what the government has said about, pay rises not being affordable to match the rate of inflation, should there be perhaps a more realistic attitude by some of the unions?
Well, it's shocking, really, isn't it, to consider that this is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And we're saying that many workers who have a full-time job have to use food banks. What we have to say clearly is that pay rises, inflation-proof pay rises, are not inflationary if they're paid out of the profits, the massive profits that these companies are making, and the huge wealth that exists in British society. The top CEOs of big business in Britain are on £4 million a year. How do they justify this inequality in society and its low pay that's driving the economy into a recession? Because workers can't buy. No one can go to a shop, Christmas shopping this year is going to be tough for most families because of this cost squeeze. So this is capitalism in crisis. There's not a lack of wealth in society. There's not a lack of need for public services, for housing and so on. This is a system in crisis. And as socialists, we are...
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but just on your point about the big business, I mean, the Fire Brigades Union, that's not basically a commercial operation. It's not a big business making lots of profit. That money has to come out of the public purse, paid for by the taxpayer, who, is obviously hurting at the moment. They've been offered 5%, and they call that derisory. I mean, there may be some people in other sectors thinking, well, actually 5% at the moment, even though it's half the rate of inflation, it does give me something.
Well, we can't accept that, can we? In terms of public services, corporations in Britain are served by the fire service, and yet they've seen huge tax cuts, not just recently, over decades. And so, yes, the wealth does exist in society, and we say the 1% should be made to pay for that. We're not saying that ordinary people should see increases in taxes as they're currently being hit by the government, increased council tax payments, again, that most people are going to be hurt. Why aren't the 1% paying here? The super rich are getting wealthier. Through the pandemic, the super rich doubled their wealth. It's obscene, and people have had enough. We're not buying this argument that the money isn't there.
But you will know that that many economists pointed out that the cut in the upper limit of 45% on tax, that wouldn't have actually raised that much money. So there's not a huge golden pot available by those at the top of the tree. But the other aspect is, if these inflation-busting pay rises are pushed through, what does that do to inflation itself?
Well, like I said, pay rises are not a cause of inflation. Companies are making huge profits. Those pay rises should be paid out of the profits of those companies. What's inflationary about that?
Basic economic law says if those companies have to pay the higher pay award, they have to charge more, and the whole thing goes round and becomes inflationary.
No, that's the capitalist problem, isn't it? Because they want to protect their profits. That's why they put up prices, because they don't want to take the hit. They want the working class to take the hit. Well, why should we? We're the ones who are producing this wealth. It's not the CEOs that are producing this wealth. If they go on strike, no one would notice.
So can I put it to you then, this is as much about class warfare as it is about getting a decent pay rise then?
Well, we live in a class society. It's clear, isn't it? There's a massive gulf between the tops of society. The middle classes are getting hammered. Let's not forget it was junior doctors that were going on strike. Most recently, barristers that were going on strike. Everyone's being hit by this cost of living, apart from the very richest in society, are all preaching tighten their belts, when they're absolutely hypocritically going out and whining and dining and drinking their champagne as much as ever. And it's not going to continue. That's why this, if you like, pot is boiling, is because people are furious at the inequality in society and being preached at by the super rich that they can't have a pay rise that's going to keep their cost of living up with inflation.
Nick Chaffey, Southern Region Organiser for the Socialist Party, thank you very much indeed for your view. And, of course, we'll see what emerges in terms of the various talks going on. And you may well have a view on